I'm with my girl, she be rockin' that Wilma Flintstone. When it's time to rock the bed, then I get my friend home.
What's up, my wizards? Dev, SBMTG. Place down there, we got decks and stuff. Today, we've got probably the most competitive deck we've done since Oath came out. This is something we've been looking at since we first saw Reflector Mage. Turns out Reflector Mage is really, really good. This is Bant Collected Company, and it's actually already had some strong showings. A gentleman named Andy Ferguson, that's his name. He not only piloted Abzan Collected Company post Oath of the Gatewatch to a top 8 finish, he's also piloted almost this deck, Bant Company, to a second place finish at a Star City Open. So Mr. Ferguson has been doing a lot of experimenting with Company since Oath came out. There's definitely a lot of cool new targets for it, and Collected Company has shot up in price since Oath came out because of all the speculation and how good it's probably going to be for the next 8 months. So let me take a look. Let me show you what I've got so far. I've been working on this deck for about a month, something like that, since I saw Reflector Mage. And I'll show you sort of where Andy and mine, our decks, differ a little bit. They do. And check the description because I'll not only give you my deck list as usual, but I'll also include a link to Andy's Star City results so you can check out his list. Most important part of any Collected Company deck, the creatures, aside from the cocoa itself. But the creatures are the marshmallows. You gotta have those or it's just not good cocoa. We're gonna start in the 2-drop slot. I like to start low, and work my way up from there. And I can go ahead and address one of the major problems with building Collected Company decks, especially in this particular format because we don't have all the options that we like to have. We want to play almost exclusively 3 mana cost creatures to maximize the value of Collected Company, but we still need to play 2-drops so that we can remain relevant in the first couple of turns of the game. And there's a couple of things, Collected Company decks up to now have played Elvish Visionary, which does draw us the card and chump blocks, but isn't a threat and doesn't ever stick around or, threaten to trade with something on blocks, nothing like that. Anaphenzia Kintry Spirit, also a really good choice, but in this deck, white is our least supported color, and it would be hard to get 2 white mana on turn 2. So what do? We got a great option out of Oath of the Gatewatch, Sylvan Advocate right here. Really relevant body on turn 2, can usually threaten to trade with things on the block, and that's good. Or against some decks is even a solid body to attack with, that's not bad. And comes down late game, it's a huge creature. Actually, when it comes down late game, it can be the biggest creature in the entire deck. The deck lacked really solid attackers, and it needed those. And it really wants creatures, whether they cost 3 mana or not, to be relevant all game long. And Sylvan Advocate really fulfills every single one of these requirements and is the perfect 2-drop creature for us. So let's play that. Up next, your boy, Jace, right here. We're playing 3 copies of Jace, whereas Andy plays 4, and I can totally understand playing 4. A lot of good synergies, although it doesn't look like it at first glance. There is some cool stuff we can do with Jace. We can draw the card, discard Death Mist Raptor, and when we flip up Den Protector, we get Death Mist Raptor into play. So that's cool. It's a way to utilize his looting ability. That's cool right there. And really the most important part is that we can recast Collected Company. Even though we're not playing too many, spells, non-creature spells in the deck, it's still really important to be able to recast Company. So yes, and honestly, it looks like, it's going to take you the whole turn to flip it after you get it off of a Company, and it's not good to get off Collected Company. But if we play Collected Company at the end of our opponent's turn, then a lot of times, especially in the mid or late game, then we can just go, untap, and immediately flip Jace during our upkeep, if that's what we want to do. So that's cool right there too. Just really important to draw cards in the early game. We need a turn 2 play, and recasting Coco is just ridiculous. So play Jace. We're playing the old 1-2 here, Den Protector and Death Mist Raptor. Den Pro at a 3 of, Death Mist at a 4 of. And again, Andy will play 4 copies of Den Protector, but I've actually slipped a card from his sideboard into the main deck because I think it's better in the local environment. We'll get to that in a second. Also, taking out Den Protector and Jace will decrease the value of the deck by like $80 some odd, probably a little bit more actually. The Den Protector's in the sideboard of this deck, the one that fills out the play set. It's good against things that play a lot of removal, yada yada. But in any case, we need to talk about these 2 cards in earnest here. Den Protector, a good sequence, at least in a vacuum, is to play, 3rd turn morph down your Den Protector, 4th turn Collected Company, 5th turn flip up Den Protector, and get your Coco back to play it on the 6th turn. Good sequence there, and it does happen occasionally, but it's mostly a sequence that takes place in your mind in a vacuum. But it does happen occasionally. And Death Mist Raptor really is probably the most solid threat in the entire deck, one of the best attackers in the deck, and certainly the best blocker, even more so than Advocate, because the Death Touch is really, really threatening. So yeah, we gotta play that, right? We're playing a 4 of Reflector Mage in the deck. This is the whole reason to play these colors, man. We do get to play like Dramoka's Command, Ojutai's Command, stuff like that. And those are good reasons and all. But really, Reflector Mage is the thing that makes a lot of people pay attention to this deck. To paraphrase Jerry Thompson, he writes for StarCityGames.com, it was something like, you know, as the format goes on and develops, people realize more and more how insane this card actually is. Reflector Mage has been awesome whether played just naturally, on even just on turn 3. He's great late in the game too, and he's really good off of company. So yes, absolutely Reflector Mage. 4 copies of Bounding Krasis, which looks pretty unassuming, but this is really good when they declare their attack step. Newer players, I just want to throw this out there real quick. Players declare their attack step independent of the attackers they're declaring. I know that sounds weird. Meaning that players declare their attack step, and then they declare what creatures they're attacking with. So, when they declare their attack step, play your Bounding Krasis, tap one of their guys down, that takes him out of any potential combat he may have wanted to be involved in, and you threaten a big blocker too. So, can really just immediately change combat situations that they thought they had on lock. That's good. Good flash creature at the end of their step, or their turn, really good thing off of Collected Company, just everything that we want Bounding Krasis is. Really a card made for Collected Company, so we're definitely going to play him. He's a solid body too, compared to a lot of stuff in the deck. Attacks well. 2 copies of Harbinger of the Tides in my main deck. This is the thing, it's a 1 of in Andy's sideboard. I've made it a 2 of in my main deck, and I've cut 1 copy of Jace, 1 copy of Denpro. Not only to bring the budget down a little bit for my audience, but also because I think at LGS, in locals, Harbinger is probably a better card. I also am a sucker for anything that you can play with Flash, so that's probably also influencing my decision. I try to remain objective. But in more creature-based formats, which Standard already is, but locals tend to be a little bit more creature-based. This is a great card that's really can win in the tempo game, which we already do pretty well against aggro as far as disrupting their tempo and sort of making them play our game, outclassing their 1 and 2 drop creatures with our 3 drops. We play a good game against aggro, but this really puts us over the top, and that's probably why it's the 1 of in Andy's board. But as a 2 of in the main of my deck, it's done really well, especially against sort of, again, not necessarily super duper top tier stuff. It's a great card. And a 1 of copy of Matter Reshaper, which started off as a 3 of in my deck, but couldn't cast it reliably. We are playing a 4 of Yavimaya Coast in our land base, which makes us able to cast the 1 of fairly reliably, and we're really just looking to get this off of a Collected Company. That's good synergy with this deck in all, you know. Most of our creatures are 3 mana, and they're all 3 mana or under, so we can get Reflector Mage when this dies, you know. There's a lot of stuff we can get when this dies. Bounding Krasis, Death Mist Raptor, you know. So really good when it dies, really good when it's in play. It can trade up pretty easily, you know. Decent attacker when you need it to be. Matter Reshaper's been great, and 1 of is about right, because I really just want to get this off a Collected Company. Don't want it to crowd my hand up too much, but Coast helps us play this. Now, Andy's also playing a 1 of creature in his deck, but it's not this. It's Warden of the First Tree in Andy's deck, and I can see why. I already talked about Sylvan Advocate. We want things we can play earlier than Collected Company if need be, but have relevance all game, and that's definitely Warden of the First Tree. But taking Warden out of this deck, and one of the reasons is because it's the only card other than fetch lands that rotates in April. Everything else lasts until October, when the deck is completely blown apart because Collected Company will rotate, and a lot of the other stuff we're playing. But for the next 8 months, every single main deck non-land card in this deck is going to stay legal. Actually, before I move on into the spells, I just want to call out, if Andy Ferguson actually sees this video, please comment if you can, and let us know a little bit more about Warden. I've already outlined what I think is the reason for it, but if there's a specialized reason, or maybe a metagame reason why you're playing Warden, I'd actually really like to know. I'm very interested in that. So, long shot, but if you see the video, let me know. We're playing 10 spells in the deck, starting with the obvious 4 copies of Collected Company. You were just all on me. Starting with the obvious 4 copies of Collected Company in the deck. Don't really have to go on. I've pretty much talked about Coco with like every single card that I've already mentioned here. It's the driving force behind the deck, whether we play it during our turn. Main phase happens occasionally, mostly during their turn, the end of their turn, or their combat step. Really, Collected Company is a great combat trick. That's one of the things that it thrives as. You know, newer players remember that you can play this at any point, at any time during the game, for the most part. But, you know, during their combat step, you can play this and get blockers. That's totally fine to do that, totally legal. I know most players know that, but again, newer players. But in any case, that's mostly when you're going to be utilizing the power of something like Collected Company to really throw them off when it comes to their combat step. I'm not going to say it happens every time. Against mid-range or turtley decks and control decks, you're often going to be playing this at the end of their turn. But just really amazing, usually a 2-for-1. And although we are playing sort of the fewest number of creatures you can play to make company work, usually you see like 28 or even 30 creatures in a Coco deck. We're just playing the 25, but every single one of them we barely ever whiff, by the way. And every single one of those creatures is fairly relevant when it comes into play. About half those creatures do something when they come into play, and the other half are just big dudes. So yes, Collected Company is obviously why we're even doing this in the first place. I'll talk about the last couple of spells here at the same time. They're both commands, you know, and they both have the same sort of philosophy behind them. 4 copies of Dromoka's command and then 2 copies of Ojutai's command. You're like, these don't have the same philosophy. Basically, in a Collected Company deck, we have to play a ton of creatures. I just said that. So we don't really get that many spots for spells. So let's play spells that are really versatile and do a lot of different things for us, fill a different couple of slots, you know. Dromoka's command can take out the silk wraps that we're fairly vulnerable to. You know, we're playing nothing but creatures that can be silk wrapped. It can put, you know, counters on our creatures, including Den Protector. That's important, making him bigger. Renders him unblockable to an extent. And it can make our creatures fight, so it's a form of removal. Really good with Death Mist Raptor, by the way. So everything Dromoka's command does is super sausage. Both here very, very versatile cards. So the obvious idea is that we want the few spells we can play to do a whole lot of stuff. 25 lands in the deck. Bant's fairly easy mana base to build because we've got the battles for it, we've got the fetches for it, so super easy. The only things I want to point out is that Lumbering Falls is especially good with Sylvan Advocate. We have these 6 lands. A lot of people forget that, those 2 words. It's land, creatures you control, and Sylvan Advocate. You get +2/+2 if you have 6 or more lands. So we have a 5/5 Lumbering Falls hanging out later on in the game. That's good. Then Yavimaya Coast, again, helps us cast Matter Reshaper if we need to. So, but again, fairly easy mana base. Here's the sideboard right here. We see a few 3-ofs. That means they're pretty important. Let's talk about that. 3 copies of Dispel in the deck. That's good against not only aggro, which plays, you know, a lot of commands and charms and things like that. Also good against control because it beats Disdainful Stroke against our Collected Company. That's important later on in the game. Really, starting on turn 5. We can beat any counterspell that they want to play against our Collected Company with this spell. Very, very important against control. We have much better game against control, both sideboards. And then the 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, mostly for beating things that will go way over the top of us, but also mass removal like Languish, Planar Outburst, good for beating those things too. So both Dispel and Disdainful Stroke serve dual purposes against multiple decks. The only other thing I really want to point out, really with the sideboard, I think everything else is fairly self-explanatory, is Hallowed Moonlight. That's, you know, we see a lot of speculation on Collected Company right now, people excited about playing Coco in Standard. So really this is just so you can say lol in the mirror match. That's it. Here are your power rankings for the deck. A final score of 70. People that know the channel will know that 70 is a very good score. In fact, tied for highest score that I've done since I've been doing these deck techs here. I've been scoring decks like this since I was like 13 years old, and I've had like 74s in the past before. But this deck, 70 is the highest I've had since I've done the channel. And I've had 3 or 4 decks that have hit 70. So 70 is a very, very, very good score. We get to play a lot of the most powerful cards in the format, and a lot of the most resilient cards in the format. Death Mist Raptor, Den Protector, Jace, Ojutai's Command, Collected Company, just everything. Very, very resilient. So, and very good post-game performance against certain decks. Mostly Esper Dragons is a bad matchup game 1 that we really, really hope to shore up in game 2. Overall, the deck will cost anywhere between about $450 to about $600 at the very high end. So, you know, you're looking at around $550 to build the deck, you know. Pretty much everything other than the fetch lands is going to remain relevant for the next 8 months. So you can play this deck for a pretty long time. That's all I've got for now. Let me know how you feel about it. You know, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Comment, because I really want to know how you feel about this. I think it's the best deck that I've done since Oath came out, and there's a lot of things to be excited about in the deck. It plays really well, and it's got some flexible slots in it. Just ask Andy, you know. So, but what are we doing next time? Next time, I'm kind of really itching to do Sphinx's tutelage. Let me know how you feel. I've been working on that tutelage super hard, but let me know how you guys feel. Hello again. You're just all over the place, man. Well, you know the deal. Like, share, comment, subscribe to all the things. Very important to me that you do those things. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.